Okay, 7th time recording. Let me open Visual Studio. So this might look like a big jump from the last video, but it's super simple. I literally took what I did for the A key and I applied it for every single key on the keyboard. So on the main function, this is just a unordered map of where int is your key, right? Or you can think of it as your unique identifier. And your bool, this is if you don't know what a key value pair is. And your bool is is your value, right? So it loops, it initializes integer key to 8, and the reason 8 is because if you look at the virtual key codes on Windows, everything before the backspace key is pretty useless and meaningless to know if it's being pressed, left mouse, right mouse button, whatever. None of these are important. So it starts from backspace, and it loops all the way to 255. So control key, enter key, shift, 0, 1, 0 to 9, A to Z, sees if any of those are pressed, all your F keys, or whatever, until 0xFF. 255 is 0xFF, which is 1 after the clear key. So basically we're checking if all of these are pressed, right? This is all we care about, just all the way up to the backspace key. All those are initially set to false. The log keys function is called, and all of these false, all of these key value pairs, right? False. These are all set to false from 8 to 255. All your keys are not pressed, and that is passed to this function, right? Which takes an unordered map as an argument. Obviously, same thing, integer boolean, and it's a reference to, and the argument it takes is a reference previous key state. So if you don't know why I did a reference, if you don't know how C++ functions work, this allows the log keys function to modify or manipulate the value passed down here, right? Alright, that's another random thing that happened today. Mic just completely cut off. But basically, if the main function calls the log keys function with this value, the log keys function wouldn't be able to modify it. And I'll explain why we need to modify it in a second. It's actually right here, but again, we iterate from 8, from the backspace key to the last key that we care about. We call the get async key state function, and we check if the 8th bit is set, which is the same thing as saying if key state does not equal to 0. So if the return value does not equal to 0, if it's pressed, right? And the reason I'm checking the most significant bit is because when the get async key state function is called, it passes a series of bits, and if the most significant bit is set to 1, that means the key is pressed, is currently being pressed, whatever. So if key state is if the current key, so 8 is backspace, so let's just pretend I'm on backspace right now. If backspace is pressed, most significant bit is set, essentially. And if the if backspace is false, right? So backspace would be 8, so 8, and the value is, let me do it in a different color. So this 8 is backspace. So if the 8th key is set to false, if our backspace is false, that means if it's not pressed, just make a switch on that. So switch on backspace. If it's backspace, you just output backspace, right? So if backspace is pressed, go down. Alright, anyways, so go down, flush the buffer out if there's anything stuck, and the std out right here. It gets shit right out. Just ignore the else statement. Alright, we go down, we call this function again, right? And we just check again, right? Is we increment, obviously by 1, increment by 1. So now we're past backspace, whatever it is. Let's see, we're on tab key, right? We're on tab. We're iterating on tab. If tab is pressed, and this is actually really quick, whatever. If tab is pressed, you output tab, and you move on, right? Now, what's it called? So back to backspace. Again, this is really quick, right? So it immediately zooms past this. I genuinely suck at explaining. But anyways, so back to, now let's say we're back to backspace. Because it's in a while loop down here in the main function. Now let's say we check if backspace is pressed, right? From the getAsync key state function, and the most significant bit is not set, then it's set right back to false, right? So if you watched my keylogger video that I did a while ago, a few months ago, I didn't map. I didn't use an unordered map. So this is kind of just checking if a boolean is true or false. But I wasn't doing that. It was just an infinite while loop, and it caused some issues when rendering the buffer. I'm not even sure if you need a map. This might be unnecessary, but let's just pretend it is necessary. But again, all of your keys are originally set to false. If that key is pressed and it is set to false, we go down, output it, go right back. If that key is not pressed, it is set to false, right? And just keep checking that.